Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game rules by Chaosium. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to language for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us again in another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I am your keeper, Keeper Michael, and we return to Horror on the Orient Express in our Act 5 season. I'd like to thank you for joining us along in the journey. It's been wild and fun. We look forward to hearing and seeing all the feedback from you, the listener, and especially you, the Patreon supporters. If you've not had a chance to check out what we have to offer on Patreon, you can at patreon.com/theoldwayspodcast. And stop over at YouTube and enjoy the videos as they arrive more and more. So we'll begin our introductions to my right.
Hello, this is Mike, and I play James Robert Fraser, who has had a very trying time and is in not the best of moods.
Yeah, that seems to be about par for the course. To Mr. Fraser's right.
Hi, this is Rena. I play Lady Elizabeth Fitzroy, and what I need is some bed rest and time to read.
Yeah, I think that probably is a prescription everybody could use at the end of the table.
Hi, this is Giles, and I'm playing Simon Griffith, and Simon's on the end of Fraser's unpleasantness and is having thoughts.
Thoughtful Mr. Griffith. I can only imagine what might arise. To Mr. Griffith's right.
Hi, this is Miranda, and I play Maggie Bellinger. And I know that this was my intro like 2 episodes ago, but I fear I may have once again acted impulsively.
I think that's what the listeners like best about you, but that's just my opinion. Last and most certainly not least.
I'm Martin, and I'm playing Richard Courtney. And for once, Richard is acting impulsively.
Yes, and that seems like as good a place of any to start. So we'll raise the curtain tonight in a place which may or may not exist. The grass here, still coated with that strange sort of peppering on type of pinks, seems to change and sway in color as the wind blows here on the grasslands. The two of you, Richard, you and Maggie, have left the comfort of the hotel in Belgrade behind for the awe and wonder which is the land beyond. There are a lot of strange shapes, things that look like trees in the distance, this grasslands. The grasses are tall, too, in certain areas, more than a meter high. And they vary as you go throughout the landscape. There's no one specific dotted path or road. Perhaps there's a stream there to your right of water. Not truly sure. With the device still firmly affixed atop your head, you can see echoes of threads here that run through this land. Same as you could before in what you would call the real world. Even that statement now is a little less firm than it has been before. And out here there are creatures too. There are things moving through the grass. Something that looks perhaps a bit like an antelope moves along with several of its herd members through the grasslands here. Although the horns don't look like the 2 relatively straight horns that you'd seen before. There are 5, 6, perhaps 8 horns per. You jut out at strange angles. It's a little disconcerting to look at because it doesn't make any logical sense, and your brain is definitely tapping on the inside of your head trying to figure out where you're at or how you got here. For you, Maggie, it feels like being back in that space where you'd met all those cats. It has the energy of the space, has that same feeling. Except out here it's raw. There's a primal feeling to the land. It's hot, almost uncomfortably hot for you. It sort of reminds you of the summer nights back in the States when all the fireflies are out and the humidity hasn't died off yet and everything sort of sticks to you.
Can we still see any remnants of the hotel room?
Yeah, you can. Behind you, there's a tiny ovoid that's left. It's no bigger than a bread box. And it sort of streams with energy out into this space. It moves and undulates back and forth. It doesn't seem like it's growing or shrinking per se, but it's definitely smaller than when you walked through it.
Richard, do you think as long as you keep the device on that we'll be able to make our way back?
Yes, I'm sure that'll be the case. Do you think we're in Africa? This looks like what I've heard about I've never been there, but it looks like it might be the plains with all these creatures and grasslands and things.
I don't think that it is. Do you remember when we were in that place there was with all the cats?
Ah, yes, I do. I don't remember the name of it.
I think that's where we're at right now. I think somehow we've been transported there with the device.
Fascinating. I knew this had the ability to travel if only I could tap into it. I don't quite know how, but well, it certainly seems to have done that.
It's strange that it would bring us here, though. Is this what you were thinking about before you put it on?
I wasn't thinking of anything at all. It was more an exploratory thing. I didn't, the whole reason for this was to explore the new lens that poor jeweler had put in. You know, the one that got beaten up in his shop by Alexander, I think.
Mike, are there any landmarks of inhabitants around us?
Not so much. You don't see any structures. There are no tents. There are no lean-tos around. But just for the sake of things, Maggie, why don't you make me a spot hidden roll?
Okay.
Because you're actively looking around the space.
That is 35 under 62.
Okay. So in the distance, we'll say about 100 yards or so, there is a shape that seems to be moving in parallel to where you're at. It isn't moving towards you, at least as far as you can see right now, but you pick it up in your peripheral vision, and then, of course, your eyes lock onto it because it's a moving object. The moving object is humanoid in shape, at least. It does seem to have 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head.
Does it seem predatory? Like, is it moving in parallel to us in a predatory manner?
No, it's not leaned down or in a pose which would preempt springing, right? So you're not getting the prey feeling. It hasn't started in you. This form is moving fairly slow too. It doesn't seem to be moving well.
Richard, look over there. There's something moving about over there.
Ah. Does Richard see anything extra because of the device?
Yeah, certainly. So this object, this thing that's moving towards you, person, this thing through the lenses is dark. It's almost devoid of everything except very minor blues and purples, which sort of emanate out from the center.
It's almost like it's not there. It's I can see a void. What do you see?
Well, I can't really tell. It's some sort of humanoid being shape. Should we call it over?
I think that would be a bad idea.
It turns a little bit and then begins to sort of arc towards you through the tall grasses. Richard, with your with the device still on, you can see it. You can see that as it brushes by the grass here, it leaves a bit of a trail through the grasses. That same sort of like purple energy.
It seems to be leaving a trail, some sort of imprint. Where it go? We need to be careful of this.
Well, it didn't look like it intended us any harm, Richard. It may be our only opportunity to interact with this place that we found ourselves in.
Yes, I suppose. Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Maggie will put her hand up and, hello over there.
You wave to it, you say hello, and as you raise your hand, it seems to not stop, but it stutters just a second visually, and then it disappears for a flat second before reappearing 10 meters in front of you.
Oh, dear.
And at 10 meters, this person is very, very easy to recognize for you, at least for you, Miss Bellinger.
Oh, who is it?
This is Dr. Smith.
Oh. Dr. Smith, how strange running into you here.
So for you, Richard, you don't see Dr. Smith at all. You see a figure which is mostly darkened purple, and there's a little bit of blue and then mixed in black. They also look like they're wrapped in bandages.
I think hearing Maggie say Dr. Smith, I think Richard will probably take the device off.
Okay. You take the device off. As you do, there is we'll just say a high-pitched whine that sort of goes slowly until it stops. Like someone let the air out of a balloon.
Is the bread box sized piece of the room still there?
Nope.
Fuck. Richard, I thought you were supposed to leave it on so that we could get back.
But it's Professor Smith. I had to. How are you? We've not heard from you for ages.
And what are you doing here?
He finishes walking up, and you can see that without the device on Richard, he's not bandaged for you at all, but he is a purple or gray tone to all of his features. But you can still see that he's carrying, your eyes still give you that resonant energy that he carries. You don't get that, of course, Miss Bellinger, because you don't have the sight. He says in so much of a cracked voice, he says, I've been walking for ages, trying to track you down.
Well, how did you get here?
Oh, the device led me here.
But I have the device.
Yes.
Richard checks.
Check it.
Still there.
It's complete now.
Yes, it is. I managed to get a jeweler in Belgrade to give it a little upgrade.
Now that it's complete, you should be able to finish the task.
What part does the device play in that task?
He breathes a very heavy sigh and then walks to a nearby stone in the ground and sits down. This grand journey has not gone well, has it?
I wouldn't say that. I feel that we're right on track.
He looks at Richard.
It's been challenging, for sure. Yes.
You're infected.
Infected?
Well, from everything I can see, boy, your skin has changed. He sort of pats his own chest. Your eyes, he opens his eyelids up and down. They don't look the same as I remember. You're not the boy from Cheddar that I helped bring to university anymore.
Well, but this seems to have been a side effect from using the device, and you're not exhibiting any of those signs. You, I presume, experimented with it too.
As we discussed the last time I saw you in this place, I did do some experimentations with it, but only less than a handful. How many times have you used it?
Well, I have kept some notes. You're welcome to review them. I don't know. Offhand, I would say, 12, maybe 20 times?
Gods, man. 10 times the amount that I have.
But you need to make comparisons with previous journeys. How on earth can you establish how it works without experimentation? It's the basis of science.
Of course, we do not argue on this point. You simply have had more intense need of it, it seems. I was more concerned about laying out the trail for you to, well, for me originally, to pick up the pieces as they went.
Well, we've gathered most of them. Oh, and one thing, we met a chap. He said that the scrolls were a nonsense, and the answer to this simulacrum was contained in a book.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the scrolls, as I had understood them, seemed to light the way to its destruction, but it's possible that perhaps these scrolls were copied into a single tome for ease of carry.
Quite the coincidence, then, that our own Lady Elizabeth would have those.
It's not a coincidence at all, Miss Bellinger. You see, being a doctor and a professor at a university is an auspicious position, but it is one which is not funded, of course, as well as we would like. The Fitzroy family in ages past has done some financial work through the college.
Hypothetically speaking, what would be the case if the simulacrum wasn't destroyed?
It's my understanding through legend that it might allow someone a ferocious amount of power, at the cost of their skin, of course. As the simulacrum cannot be ritually worn without the removal of said skin.
Oh, you wear it. Oh. Interesting.
I'm not sure how I feel about this skin removal. That sounds... How would one survive such a thing?
Could it be anyone's skin?
He gives you a very strange look. What do you mean, anyone's skin?
I'm just curious as if any of us are at risk of harm for it. And what kind of power would it bestow? Could that person bring someone back to this world?
I think, Miss Bellinger, perhaps you have touched too many pieces, it seems.
No, we don't even have them all yet.
Well, we're only missing one, aren't we?
Just one, he says.
Yes, we still have to find the head.
Well, then you should be off to find the head. What are you doing here?
Well, we had just found a piece, and we got the device fixed, and Richard tried it on, and we've only been here momentarily.
Well, perhaps nothing too much is lost then.
Lost? What? I mean, what do you mean?
Time.
Oh, time.
Time. The thing that we cannot get back. The thing once spent is done.
I'm not entirely convinced. I think if we select the correct lenses, perhaps this new one and one of the others, which I'm just looking up on my notes, and yes, maybe the green one. I believe we could step back into the past and we could correct our own mistakes.
A very dangerous gamble. Now, I have limited time here myself. He sort of looks around. You can see the edges of the landscape are also getting darker. Like the trail that he left, it hasn't dissipated, it hasn't gone away. The coloring is still there. I must share with you a very hard truth. I am dead.
What?
I have been dead for several days now. I succumbed to my burned wounds. Beddoes did his best to attempt to rehabilitate me. We exchanged some conversation. I received some updates from you along your travels, but those updates, the letters that you had sent,
Yes.
it seems that some of those fezzed gentlemen followed them, and they came to my recovery home in the country.
Ah.
Rest assured, it was quick for me. I've no judgment on what happened to Beddoes. I was gone before I knew anything.
How long could you last here? Indefinitely?
I don't think so. He sort of looks around. You see, I have been chasing you and in hopes of not being caught by what is out there, what is here. There is a man here who seeks to end me here.
No.
He cannot be stopped. He is inevitable. He looks painfully serious. I need the two of you to get back on track.
Well, is there anything we could do to assist you, to help you fend off this assailant?
Yes, certainly. I have been able to drink waters from certain pools which have re-energized me here, brightens my form.
Right.
And what is it then that you need from us?
Well, we all contain a certain amount of energy. It's what sustains you here.
Are you asking for some sort of a blood transfusion of energetic sorts?
Not in such a medicinal way as you might think. There is a way that energy can be exchanged between two people, if they are willing. He sort of reaches out his hand to you, Maggie.
Maggie takes his hand.
His hand is cold and clammy and almost what you might imagine a cadaver would feel like.
So cold. Well, go on, do what you will.
He takes a hold of your hand and you'll make a power roll for me. It'll be contested.
Extreme success for Maggie Bellinger.
Okay. So you resist, and after about 10 or seconds or so, you see Dr. Smith look a little forlorn. He puts his head down. It's not working. It's not working.
I apologize. I tried. How about could you take energy from Richard?
Yes. Try my hand.
I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare. He puts his hands up.
Is it because you think he's sick and contaminated in some way?
He is contaminated. You must know that. He's carrying this sickness inside of him now. It's already taken from him his eyes and may soon take his whole body.
Well, you treat it like some sort of parasite, but it could be a symbiotic relationship. It may be they each get something out of it.
Yes. Ever the optimist.
Well, I certainly apologize that I couldn't help you.
He nods.
Is there a cure?
For death, Richard?
No, whatever it is that afflicts me.
There is a way, perhaps. It is a thin path, but it is wrought with horrible things.
We seem to have had our share of those.
I have done some research into this. There are certain rituals that might be able to cleanse it from you. They may even yet be contained in mystical tomes that are rumored throughout history. Perhaps a cleansing could be done on you.
And where would I find details of such a ritual?
Well, there are mysteries in books that are not yet uncovered. There are several French libraries that I could point you towards.
Oh, you've had a bit of an experience there, haven't we, Maggie?
We absolutely have. But is there time? But perhaps this is something that would have to wait. If you were just encouraging us to get back to our mission.
My one fear is that you would be lost here, in this place. The surrounding landscape continues to darken to where now you can see maybe 100 to 150 yards in every direction. Everything else is dark.
The sun appears to be disappearing.
It's not the sun.
Oh.
No. Shades of human spirits are not meant to dwindle. We are meant to move on, and when we do not move on, the darkness comes for us.
Right. Are you sure I can't offer you some sustenance?
If you are willing, against my better judgment, he turns his hands towards your, and make me a power roll.
29, which is a hard success.
Okay. You feel like when he takes your hand and you honestly and truly want to help Dr. Smith again, when he grabs your hand, it feels like someone bit your wrist. Like there's an audible and painful bite at your wrist. And you see the first color change that happens in Dr. Smith's face is his eyes. And they go shock red. And they sort of bleed down the veins in his face all the way into his neck.
Are you okay?
I'm perfectly fine.
Looks terrifying.
He still has hold of your hand.
Well, he still wants to help him. He's somewhat confused, but...
It's going to cost you 3 POW.
Okay. Oh, 3 POW.
Uh-huh. You wouldn't deny me now, would you? He sort of urges your arm closer.
It's an odd turn of phrase. Deny you?
You have so much life left in you.
Tell me, do you recall the name of my school?
He looks over at you, Maggie, and as he turns his face towards you, like the shape of his face starts to alter.
Into something familiar or something monstrous?
Something a little both.
Okay.
A little familiar, a little monstrous. His face sort of elongates a little bit. His form thins. Marguerite, he urges Professor closer.
Richard, you said you wanted to help the man. Help, he's dying.
Moment, Richard doesn't know any different. So Richard will probably help him a little bit more.
Okay, very good.
You have plenty in you, Richard.
Okay. He'll take 4 more POW from you. And his form now gets a little taller than Professor Smith was. And you're beginning to seriously have heart palpitations and panic as this grip on your hand and wrist will not let go. And now you are certain, as the moments tick by, that the guise of Professor Smith is fading, and what is being replaced by it is the Comte.
Hi, Maggie. We've been tricked. This isn't Professor Smith at all.
Oh, I'm dreadfully sorry. I wanted to feed you, and I couldn't, and I failed you. It had to be Richard.
What? You're telling me you knew?
Well, no, I didn't know, but now that I do, I feel absolutely horrible.
Quite right. Richard's going to try and pull his hand away and...
Oh, wonderful. So I'm going to ask for a simple strength roll.
That's going to go well. That's a fail.
Okay.
54 over 40.
Very good. You see the form, the still withered form of the Comte with his, veins pumping with your life essence. Now all of the veins on his arm have bulged a little bit, and you can tell he's becoming more and more vital.
Maggie, you have to help me. Get him off me.
It's going to cost you another 3 points of POW.
Would you like to try to drink from me again? I'm willing. I won't resist.
He turns an arm, another hand towards you, Miss Bellinger, with a finger up and says, "You wait your turn."
This is mean Professor Smith is not dead?
You have all the essence I need, Professor. And he's going to launch himself at you. Mouth open. So your options are to dodge or to fight back.
I thought you were going to say to die then.
No.
Unfortunately, Richard threw the toilet gun at Alexander, so I think probably dodge.
All right.
Oh, 94.
Yes. I've rolled a 4.
Oh, dear.
So, Maggie, you watch the Comte launch himself at Richard, and you watch as his mouth latches onto Richard's neck. And there is a vicious sound. A scream emanates from the professor's mouth.
You can't kill him yet. We need him. We need him to complete the device.
you're going to be drained 6 magic points.
Mm-hmm. So that's no magic points, and I'm assuming the other 2 come off the hit points.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's cool. So 17 hit points, no magic points.
And he is feeding like a ferocious animal. There's all sorts of just visceral, meaty sounds that are coming out of the space between them. And with each moment, the comp becomes more and more vibrant.
Can I try to grab Richard and pull Richard away from the comp?
Yeah, certainly. You can make a contested roll between the comp and you, and we'll see how that works out for you.
This is strength, you said, correct?
Yeah.
That is a fumble.
Oh, I just won't even roll. All right, so I'm going to play a Hand of Fate for you, Miss Bellinger, and I'm going to allow you to re-roll that.
Thank you.
Don't thank me. Thank the person who voted for you.
That's a success. A 20 under 35.
Okay. So you manage to separate the 2 of them. You can tell that the comp is still a little uneasy on his feet. He doesn't seem to have the same strength that you've seen him have in other places. Certainly not the clock tower. And you rip them apart. For you, unfortunately, Richard, this is going to cost you 3 more magic points. As your essence, life essence, is now all over the Dreamlands. And it's oddly sparkling.
Richard, hurry, put the device back on. We have to get out of here.
Yes, we must. Richard will pop the device on with the same lens configuration as before. So, clear lens and new lens.
Okay.
Coated lens and new lens.
Certainly. Now, you can make me a power roll. For you, Miss Bellinger, the comp is going to attempt to grab a hold of you.
Saucy.
So you may dodge or fight back.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't want to do either, but I'll dodge.
You can certainly relent. I would let you.
God, Maggie does kind of want to relent, and I feel like Maggie would, but also, this isn't the loving, caring comp that I'm used to. I don't think he's himself here. Perhaps he could come back with us, so I'm going to just dodge out of the way, feeling a little unsure and seeing how he's attacked Richard.
Okay, go right ahead.
Failed.
So you get grabbed. And when he grabs hold of you, he grabs hold of your clothes and pulls you close and says, "Not just yet, Miss Bellinger. You're staying with me."
Yeah. Richard made his power roll, by the way.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so the device activates.
A hard one as well.
Ooh, all right. Which, of course, is going to cost you magic points to activate.
Yes.
Oh, only 1.
That's good.
Lucky there. So the device activates. In your ear, the comp whispers, "The professor must go. His time is over."
Yes, he wasn't strong enough to stay with you.
He's not strong enough for you either.
Oh, I'm aware of that.
All right, Richard, you activate. You're going to attempt to breach the veil.
Yes. I don't know if... Now I know where we are. If Richard can kind of imagine that and maybe get some additional drive from that.
Yeah. I certainly think you can imagine it. You've been both places very, very recently. It's not like you're trying to imagine a place which you've never been before.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you know exactly what the other side of the mirror looks like. So we'll say that you hone your focus into that hotel room in Belgrade again. And as you do, reality splits in front of you like an egg and exposes this strange watery shape in the middle of in this simple plane in front of you here, standing in front of you, where you could easily pass through back into the mirror.
We're just going to try and grab Maggie away from the comp
Oh, I like this. Okay.
with his 40 strength.
With his 40 strength. So Maggie, you probably feel Richard grab you, the other part of, like your dangling arm from the other side.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Maggie's not going to grab back, but...
Okay.
We've got to complete the statue.
Okay. So Richard has you, but you're not grabbing back.
Yeah, like he's grabbing onto me. I'm not grabbing back onto him. Like, it's a one-sided deal.
It's a one-sided deal. I understand. But we'll let the dice decide this. I just think this is the best way.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Professor. Give me a strength roll. And Maggie, if you don't want to be taken, then you'll need to make a strength roll as well.
I don't think Maggie's in the headspace to resist either force right now. She's feeling pretty torn between the two. Like, she wants to be obedient to the Comte. He doesn't really seem like he's in the right state of mind because we've been sent on this job, and it sounds like he wants to peel my skin off and me to wear him like a suit. There's a simulacrum like a suit, so he's not in his right state of mind. If Richard wants to pull me away, I'm not going to resist Richard, but...
Okay. Richard?
He made a terrible roll.
Did he?
It was 95. Not quite a fumble, but...
No, not quite a fumble. So I don't do this lightly. I'm going to play an empowered hand of fate for you, Richard. And when you grab hold of Maggie, there is an electric surge through your body that transfers to her and through her. So when he grabs you, Maggie, it feels like a thunderbolt goes off in your body. And the Comte is pushed like back through the field. Your eyes, you feel on your eyes and on your cheeks, Richard, you feel a wetness again. You've had this feeling before. And Maggie, when you look back at Richard, every lens on the device is bright.
Richard, how did you do that?
I don't know. We must go, though. Quickly. Before he comes back. Then Richard's going to literally just rip Maggie through the hole in the veil.
Interesting. So she said before she's not resisting. I'll just check in with the player again.
Yeah, I'm not resisting.
Okay.
There's bigger plots at play here. Maggie's confused and trying to figure some things out in her head right now, and she's starting to think she may be in a slightly abusive relationship with the Comte.
Now? Oh, well, okay.
Just now.
Just now. Okay. So this surge that goes through you, Richard, clears the Comte away, and the two of you slip back in through to the hotel in Belgrade, and you sort of thump against the bed and the desk, and you both spill out into the room as gravity exerts its control over the both of you. Meanwhile, it's been a trying day for you, Mr. Fraser. It's been a trying week, perhaps a trying month, but you've managed to settle in for a nice cup of tea to relax finally. You know that the train is going to leave tomorrow morning, and you're going to be on it. You've made those arrangements, and so now all that is left, seemingly, is just to get through this night.
Yes, indeed. I think after the day that he's had, a cup of tea, a bite to eat in the evening, and a good night's sleep, up reasonably early in order to catch the 9:56 from Belgrade, aiming to arrive in Sofia at 18:56 tomorrow evening. And I think he's just going to sit quietly and calmly, probably in the communal area for the time being anyway, maybe with a glass of whiskey in hand and his pipe, and just kind of reflect on the doings of the day. And I think as well he'll probably be leafing through the notebook that Paul gave him, just picking out different times when he had rendezvous with the Comte and details of exactly what he did and how he tried to deal with him, and what dire straits he was put in that he somehow managed to weather. And I think his admiration for the young man gains quite considerably while he reads this little notebook, hoping as well that the Latin text that he's passed on to Lady Elizabeth can be deciphered, can be translated, and might give some sort of insight into how this thing that was once a man can be dealt with. And I think his mind kind of goes to that work by the Irishman Stoker as well. Perhaps that work of fiction wasn't a million miles from the truth.
Yeah, there's a lot to get through in Paul's notes. There's one thing that you learn fairly early on, probably within the first 10 or so pages, is Paul has a method and he has a certain way of translating information. It's a little different than you've read in some of the other textbooks and probably newspaper pages in that sense, sort of those sorts of things, whether they be newspapers or whether they be leaflets, etc. He has a method of putting information out and almost prioritizing that information for you as you read through it. He's made several attempts to deal with the Comte. Most of them have been medicinal. He categorizes one of them as folklorish. And so he evidently during one of their discourses, he had worn a very large ring of garlic cloves under his clothes in an attempt to, see if there was any sort of reaction to it, but there wasn't. He tried essence of garlic and several different bloods that he provided the Comte. That did not have any sort of effect. He's tried actually poisoning him through medicinal poisons or through caustic chemicals. Those have not had any sort of effect on him. And so you can even see through some of his, the text that's there, he expresses quite a lot of frustration at not being able to figure out the puzzle. To him, this is a puzzle, and that there has to be a way to get to him. There has to be something that the Comte is not immune from. But he admits too that all of his methods have attempted to be, with great subterfuge. He's not interested in going to all-out war because he doesn't believe he can win. And so he's trying whatever he can subtly, which is again to be commended.
Yes, I think it probably appears to Fraser that all his attempts, he's been very methodical in the way he's attempted. He's tried something, made a note of whether or not it was in any way successful, moved on to something else, used certain points of reference, worked through them in a very kind of straightforward, methodical manner. But I think after reading this for a while, it becomes pretty apparent to Fraser that these more subtle attempts, these some of these folklore methodologies of dealing with this thing, this creature, because I think Fraser has now reached the opinion that this is a creature. It's just it's a demon, looks like, that wears the face of a man. That a lot of this folklore is either just old wives' tales that actually has no meaning at all, or is not effective in the particular case of this individual. So perhaps something a little more straightforward, a little more of a blunt instrument might end up having to be the solution that they choose to deal with him. And if my memory serves me correctly, the fiend in Stoker's Gothic novel was actually finally dispatched using a stout Bowie knife by the American member of the party that went to deal with him. So he's beginning to think that maybe something of that ilk might be the necessary means of getting rid of this creature, this fiend.
It does sort of put you back in your memory to the toothpick that Simon used to carry, that same sort of what we would call a Bowie knife.
Fraser he's not entirely sure he can trust Simon, because based on the conversation that he's had with him earlier in the evening, based on the circumstances surrounding Richard's shooting, it's very, very clear to Fraser that Simon works for an organization that commissions assassinations. And that means that if for any reason that organization determines that any member of this party is a potential liability, a potential threat, then they may order their agents, and their agents include Simon, to deal with them. And that could be Richard, that could be Maggie, that could be myself, that could be her ladyship. And if any harm came to her ladyship, then there would be hell to pay.
Very well. So I'll leave you there for the moment. Lady Elizabeth.
Yes.
How are you spending that evening before leaving Belgrade, having been given some of this text in Latin?
Well, once I've taken a bit of a nap, I think I'm going to stay in bed and do some light reading in Latin, as one does.
Very good. So if you would give me a library use roll.
Okay.
For this specific reading.
My library use is 88. And I rolled a 61, so regular success.
So most of this stuff, Latin-wise, we'll just say is fairly decipherable. The notes Paul makes here in Latin are more what sound like cookbook instructions. So they are the concoctions, the chemical concoctions that he has attempted. And he even tells you, the reader, as you're reading it, the reason why they're placed in Latin is to keep them from the prying eyes of the general public. Latin being a language which is usually only learned and used by we'll just say, the professionals and or certain researchers. His purpose was to prevent them from being misused. But he has a recipe list that's fairly long of things that he's tried. Some very dangerous and caustic materials that he's attempted to get the comp to either drink, either infused with the blood that he's used. And of course, like you get even the gallows humor that he has when it comes to trying essence of garlic and stuff like that. He doesn't believe it actually will work, but he tries it anyway because it's another thing to try.
Scientific method, you have to eliminate all the possibilities.
Certainly. There's no distinct spell work or anything like that here. There's nothing that would seem arcane in nature. This is purely scientific, having read that. But it does show you to what ends Paul is willing to go. And it does sort of, I would say, prove up Fraser's position on Paul, having had that talk with him. It would be one thing for someone to lie about their position. It would be another thing entirely for them to produce 20 handwritten pages of how they've tried to kill someone as proof that they were trying. But he has a very like I mentioned before with the text that's in English, there's a very strict outline as far as that he follows. All the recipes they're ordered the same way. All the details are ordered the same way, almost as if Paul must do it that way, even down to the lines themselves. So the word outline, the section by section outline has to be in the same position on every single page that appears. So that's something that you pick up on as you're reading through that night.
Admirable. Neat and orderly, my sort of thing.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, and befitting somebody who's in the doctoral studies as well. You would want a doctor who is well put together and not, sort of just flinging text far afield. But your night spent in bed is good for recuperation, and it's good to know that a lot of things have been tried, and now you'll just have to figure out and commit to a path that has not been tried.
Absolutely. It's very useful. Means we don't have to try all those things.
Yeah, that is one thing, right? He didn't fail to make a light bulb. He tried, and in the Latin text, there's also no emotion in it. It's all cold. It's all very analytical.
Well, that's how texts of this sort should be written, in my opinion. When you let emotion get in the way of whether it's occult studies or medicine, you tend to make silly mistakes, and also makes it harder for your reader to decipher. Speaking
of emotion, there's an awful lot of unresolved things that went on for you in the forest.
Just a tad.
You also brought something back with you, it feels like, above and beyond the changes that you've gone through. You sort of begin reading through that text as a manual of sort, the Latin that's been provided as a methodology of getting the job done. The parts of your brain that are more mechanical and more that want to lock into place, now that the book is unlocked, you have an entire different text to look at.
Yes, I've been waiting a long time to look at this other text.
You bet. a very long time.
Hmm. So once I've done my duties to Mr. Fraser, so to speak, of looking at this text that Paul provided, I'm going to very eagerly get my book out, finally.
Okay. You get the book out. It's unlocked. Although it can still be clasped. The locks aren't holding anymore. So it can be held shut, but it's not locking down in you. Drop the locks to the right-hand side and take a hold of the big heavy cover and open it up.
Now, what were you keeping from me, Father?
I'll put you on hold right there. Simon, you had mentioned that you had some things to determine and figure out, perhaps in the after echoes of what happened in the forest before you beat Belgrade, the things that you'd like to get wrapped up.
Simon is going to need to run some errands, so he's going to dress up and step out into the city.
Okay. Where are you headed to?
Well, he's going to head to the telegram office to send off a few telegrams, and then he is going to see if he can find a watchsmith or a watchmaker, and hopefully not the same one that someone's device was dropped off at.
Well, that was a jeweler specifically, but I imagine there's probably more than one watchmaker here.
And then also if there is an armorer of any sort.
An actual armorer? Someone that deals with plate mail?
No, as in weapons.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the Turkish bazaar that's here has a ton of people. That's where ton of people that sell weapons. That's where Fraser got a hold of the Lupara. Yeah, what are you looking for?
I do have throwing knives, so let's go ahead and try and find a heavy-bladed short sword. It can be Eastern then, but something that, I can easily have under a coat that's not too much bigger than what I would normally work with, like 36 inches, so a foot and a half.
Okay, so a kopis then, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's easy enough to find here. They've also been used for just a little while here, in Greece anyway. It's basically a Greek short sword. But for you, given your size, it's basically like an enormous knife.
Okay, and a nice quality one too, as opposed to just leftovers from many battlefields.
Oh, okay. So a little bit more searching, sure, that day, but you're likely to locate and pay for something that is, we'll just say, high quality. A little bit thicker of a blade, and then something that's full tang, so that way it's got a real sturdy handle to it.
Okay. And then last but not least, I'm going to stop by the train station and collect a schedule.
Okay, you collect a schedule.
I'm going to be checking for routes heading west.
Routes heading west. Yeah, several. There's a couple there's one back the way you came, certainly. But there are many trains that run along this line.
One that hopefully wouldn't go through Italy.
Oh, no. Well, yeah, there is a line that would go north, basically from Belgrade here, that would go up to Budapest and then eventually Vienna and then Salzburg. And you could hook on to a line that goes all the way back. It looks like it goes all the way back to Munich and eventually Stuttgart and Paris.
Okay, sounds good. And once all that's done, and I figure that'll take a few hours, Simon's going to head back to the hotel.
Okay. Head back to the hotel. At some point, Lady Elizabeth, in your studies, right before you're about to open the book, there is a clatter that comes from Miss Bellinger's room, which is next to yours. And it sounds like someone fell out of bed. And then it sounds like another person fell out of bed.
Well, I'm not going to judge Miss Bellinger for nighttime activities. I've certainly had several of my own.
So, Richard, you and Maggie arrive in your hotel room, although you don't arrive at the same angle in which you left. And so you walked in through the portal, ran in, and then seemingly you are arriving from the ceiling to the floor. Miss Bellinger, of course, lands comfortably in the bed. Richard, you do not. You sort of bang off the dresser that's in the room a little bit, and then eventually come crashing to the floor.
Ow.
Oh, Richard, are you okay?
I'm not sure. I've hit my bloody elbow.
No, not from the fall, Richard.
Oh, I'm not sure.
He's bleeding from the neck, Miss Bellinger.
Oh, here, I'll grab whatever cloth is nearest by to wrap around his throat.
You grab the bedspread and put it around his throat.
I think there was some ambiguity as to what your intentions were there for a moment.
Oh, I agree.
You wanted to stay with him?
Well, Richard, I have mixed feelings about the whole deal. I don't understand why he attacked you like that. I was more than willing to give him my life essence.
But did you not recall he said that he was going to take yours later, and he wanted you to take your skin off and put on the pieces of the statue? I mean,
I don't think we clarified that it had to be my skin.
I think there was a fair chance that's what he intended.
And also, if I'm the skinless one, then I will not be denied.
Denied what? A painful, shitty death?
I don't know yet, Richard. Like I said, this has been a very confusing encounter with the Comte, indeed.
And he clearly engages in trickery. I mean, pretending to be the ghost of Professor Smith. I mean...
Well, you wouldn't have talked to him otherwise.
Well, you would.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Actually, you might too.
I just don't think you can trust him. I think he has ulterior motives. He's only out for himself, believe me.
Well, aren't we all?
Well, no, not like that.
I'm going to check Richard's throat to see if it's still bleeding. I've been applying pressure to his throat.
Next door, Lady E is sighing heavily and closing her book, putting it under her pillow, and going to see what all the noise is next door.
Yeah, how thin are these walls?
Oh, yeah, they're pretty thin.
Well, I was going to give the Comte my life, and then he took it from you.
Yeah, his wounds probably need a doctor. There are two visible puncture wounds in his neck.
Richard, would you like me to go fetch Paul? I'm concerned about what he'll say about this and what you'll tell him, but I think that he may be needed in order for you to not bleed out here in my room.
I think you should get him, yes, indeed.
Will you stay here? Apply pressure, Richard. Lay down, apply pressure.
I will. Oh, dear.
You're going to go find Paul?
Yeah.
Okay, so you open the door, and obviously there's space here in the communal space where other people are and or could be. So I'll just say, I'm happy to have Simon have returned by this point. I don't know if Fraser is reading in the main room or his own room.
I was reading in the main room. That was my plan. But it depends what time of night it is, really, because he will go to bed at some point.
Yeah, we'll just say you haven't gone to bed yet. So yes, you walk across the main area, Miss Bellinger, and since you had been applying pressure to Richard's throat, Mr. Fraser, you will see that Miss Bellinger's fingers now seem to be discolored just slightly. Lady Elizabeth, the racket that is now taking place seems to have gotten louder somehow. And so you're trying to figure out what the hell is going on.
Oh, I've grabbed my cane very painfully because my hands are still burned up a bit. And I'm limping out, trying to see what all this noise is, because I'm imagining Maggie is causing another brouhaha somewhere. So...
Oh, good, Fraser, you're here. Richard needs some assistance in the other room. He's bleeding from the neck. I'm going to go fetch Paul.
But I heard this mighty crash and racket, and what's happened?
Oh, we came back from where those cats were, and we fell right into my bed from the ceiling. It's an awful mess, and Richard's bleeding all over the place. I'll be back. You go see to him.
What? Cats? The cat? What? Did you say cats?
Maggie is walking to find Paul.
And Professor, are you there? God, man, what's happened to you? You're bleeding.
Yes, I am. We need to. I need to talk to you urgently before Maggie comes back. Well, we went to it doesn't matter how, but we went to another place and we met somebody who. Wait a minute. We met somebody who purported to be Professor Smith, but turned out to be that ghastly gentleman that had me in some strange state in the hotel. Do you remember the one with the toilet gun?
What? Do you mean the Comte?
That old gentleman in the wheelchair, the one with the.
Aye, the Comte. That's the Comte.
Yes, him.
He did this to you.
Yes, he did. But he's after Maggie. He wants.
What do you mean he's after her? He's coming. He's here. Do you mean he's here?
Yeah. Well, through the mirror. I'll explain that a bit later. But we have to do something. He was talking about skinning her, man.
But is he here? Are we in danger from him here? Do we need to get everyone else together?
No, it was some sort of gateway or door that was created in a mirror by the device.
What, like Alice?
Yes, sure.
And it's closed now. Is it closed now?
Yes. It's perfectly safe. It was in the ceiling above there. You see, I dropped from it.
I'm just going to look up at the ceiling.
The ceiling looks fine. Although I will say this, Mr. Fraser, you notice that the mirror here in the room, the stand-up one, the same one you have, or at least similar one, the glass is a little, not a perfect pane of glass, for sure. It's a little warped. You get to Paul's room, Miss Bellinger, and after knocking, he opens the door. Is everything all right, Miss Bellinger? What's all the racket?
Oh, Richard's been wounded by the Comte.
Oh, gods.
I tried to offer my life to him, but he decided to take from Richard instead, and I didn't realize initially. I didn't mean to resist. Oh, I hope he's not angry with me. But Richard needs your help. He's bleeding from the throat.
He stands up very shortly. Did you say that he wouldn't?
Well, I wanted to.
Mm-hmm. But he wouldn't.
Well, I think he tried, and somehow couldn't. But then when I offered myself to him freely, then he wouldn't. He said that I had to wait my turn.
Paul gets a really strange look on his face. It's something you've never seen before. Of course. Of course.
What is it, Paul? Paul, you should be helping Richard. He's bleeding from the throat.
Of course. Absolutely. He reaches down and picks up his bag and then hustles out of the room. And then moments later arrives in Richard's room. Professor, are you all right?
Well, I don't know. It depends who you ask these days.
I'll be trying to do some quick first aid to him while I'm waiting for...
Yeah, go right ahead.
I not so much pressure on the throat, Mr. Fraser. I can hardly breathe.
Just hold still, man, and shut up. That's a success.
Very well. You staunch the bleeding, and while you don't have necessarily the 10 minutes to run the entire gambit of a first aid, we'll just say that the bleeding had stopped. Richard will get a hit point back, and then tick your box. So that way when we do improvements at some point in the future. So Paul comes in and is going to follow up first aid with medicine, but less of the skill roll portion, more of just the medical work on you, Richard. He looks at you as he's passing through the space, Lady Elizabeth. I'll be right with you. I think I've made a breakthrough.
All right. Wonderful. What the devil is going on?
So he gets you bandaged up to the point where you can, not bleed out here on the hotel room floor. He gets you sitting in a chair and then provides you with water to drink and then, perhaps some tea, as would likely be your preference.
Thank you, Paul.
I think I've made a breakthrough thanks to Miss Bellinger.
A breakthrough? I mean, what kind of breakthrough?
The Comte has menaced many people.
You know of the Comte?
He looks at you, Fraser. We've not shared this with them.
I have been working towards it.
Richard looks disapprovingly at Mr. Fraser.
Let me sum this up for you, Professor. It is the best way I know how to. Inside that sanitarium in Paris, I had the opportunity and the fortune to survive an attack from the Comte, and became known to him, and shortly thereafter known to you. He sort of looks down at the floor, and I've made some very difficult decisions. But what I've come to the realization is that perhaps the Comte has, well, do you like gelato?
Yes.
Do you have a favorite flavor?
Yes.
Do you have a flavor you prefer above most of the rest of them?
Yes, I have a favorite.
The Comte does too. He has favorites?
Ice cream?
Not exactly.
What on earth are you talking about? What a favorite what?
Well, we'll just say that the aims of his feedings, the people whom he is amorous towards, lay in a specific direction.
I'm an ice cream? You think he prefers the flavor of...
No, just stay with me here on planet Earth, if you would. I think the Comte likes you and perhaps Mr. Fraser, and then perhaps many other gentlemen.
Right.
And I think that he might want to utilize Miss Bellinger as a tool.
Yes, I got that impression as well. He was talking about wearing the pieces of the statue, but without skin. And I was under the distinct impression, although Maggie would probably disagree, that he was wanting to skin her.
Oh, I don't think so. That's not his way. He would need the additional blood to stay alive, likely during whatever foul ritual it would take to wear simulacrum. I think he prefers to feed on men.
Right.
You're his flavor of gelato.
Oh, I understand. Not particularly specific.
We could use this to our advantage.
How?
Well, perhaps once we've collected the head, Miss Bellinger would be willing to be, well, a bait of sort.
But he wouldn't feed from her, surely.
No, but he might come to collect her once she has all the pieces.
Right.
And if it's staged properly, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps it's possible that we could get the jump on him.
We must persuade Maggie that the Comte does not have her best interests at heart, and that he's ultimately wishing to do her some sort of harm. I don't understand what. If you say it's not skinning her, then whatever it is, it's not good, is it?
It's definitely not good. He means her ill, for certain.
Yes. Why can't she see it?
Well, is it possible that she's looking for something in him, or she's found something in him she can't find elsewhere?
I doubt it. I mean, the man apparently doesn't even have a drop of blood or life essence in him. Maybe she's looking for death.
From the holes on your neck, he has some sort of essence.
Well, he does now.
We'll need to monitor your condition to make sure you don't get sick.
He said I was infected.
Well, I'll just put it this way. Professor, you're not the man I met in France.
Quite. Yes, we've been through a lot.
Simon, at this point, you enter the communal space. So there are several doors open. Your shopping is done.
Simon looks around and sees everything clustered in the main room and quietly goes to his room.
Okay. Well, I think you should get a good night's rest. Yes? As best you can. Perhaps lay off the use of the device until you're rested.
Yes, I don't know how he found us, but he claimed to be Professor Smith at one point.
This would not be the first time I've heard the Comte change his visage to match the situation.
So if he can masquerade as somebody else, is there any way to tell? Is there any way to see through the disguise?
Keen eyes. There is one thing that I have learned about him that you might be able to pick up on. He does not sweat. I have seen him in heat before, but he does not sweat. It would be a dead giveaway.
Yes, that is something to look out for.
Can he move freely between the worlds then?
I do not know. I do not know where you were.
Oh, we were the place where we saw the cats.
He screws up his features.
It is apparently another world, a realm of dreams, which we have all somehow visited in the past.
Well, if he can reach you there and here, he is our number one threat. Means that no place is safe.
Do you think he's in any way at all connected with Mrs. Griffiths?
Mrs. Griffiths? He looks a little strange.
The one who shot me?
Oh. Wait, she shot you?
Yes.
No, I think you're getting confused, Professor. Mrs. Griffith is an agent of the same organization as Simon.
She shot me.
That's not what you told me. You told me that the man who shot you was shooting you on her orders.
Yes, you're quite correct. Yes. Sorry, let me rephrase that then. The one who sent someone to shoot me. Who did shoot me.
Yes, that I remember.
Is there a connection?
I don't believe so. I don't know enough about Mr. Griffith's role other than being a protectorate.
I believe he is a little more than that. I believe he has his own agenda, which he has not shared with us. Protecting the professor does not seem to be the main thrust of his organization's motives, shall we say.
Well, best to suss out what those are, then I would imagine. But I don't see any direct connection between killing you and getting what he wants. His attention has mostly been focused on Miss Bellinger. And that is because she has been collecting the pieces to the puzzle he is looking to complete.
And the ones with the feathers, do they work for him? Or are they somehow in league?
That I am not clear on yet. I am not clear on who those men are, or why they have sought you out, or why they have tried to kill you too. But we are heading that way. We will see more and more of them soon.
It does seem to be that everybody's out to get us, doesn't it?
It does seem that way. Well, rest up, Professor. We shall need your strength for the morning.
I fear it might take a while for it to return.
We should check the wound, and provided there's no infection, we should proceed along the line. He stands up and clicks his case closed and heads out of the room.
Quite the mystery. Everybody's got something to hide.
I think on that auspicious note, it is time to end. Thank you for joining us. We greatly appreciate your listening ears, and we look forward to entertaining you again next week.